Hey everyone, I hope you are all doing well. I have been meaning to film this video for a while, and it's my updated how to design clothes using Adobe Illustrator. This is going to be incredibly beginner friendly. Hopefully in this video you're able to basically go from being a beginner to being able to actually produce something on Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to go ahead and record my screen, and I'm going to become a little box in a corner because I still feel like I want my face to be in this video. So I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how I use Adobe Illustrator to design clothes, and there's going to be some hacks in here. You may not necessarily agree with my hacks, but trust me, they help and they save you a lot of time. Whenever I'm designing something, I usually go into Google and I type in like exactly what it is. This is especially good for people that don't know how to draw. Once you've got like a base of what you want, you can use that base and then change it and start to design your own jacket. So as you can see, I've hopped onto this website and there's this varsity jacket here, and I'm gonna base my design, my silhouette off this jacket. What I'll do is I'm gonna take a screenshot of this, and now that's gonna be on my desktop. Now I'm going to open up Adobe Illustrator and I'm going to click new file. In here, it's just asking you how you want your file to be. So I'm actually going to go for a print document, and it's going to be A4 and it's going to be in a landscape orientation. These settings here, you don't really need to change them. So you can go ahead and click create. So here's your artboard. This is called an artboard. So the first thing I'm actually going to do before I actually import that image is I'm going to go through all the tools and just let you know what they do and what their shortcut key is. So the first tool here is the selection tool, and its shortcut key is V. So this tool basically selects an object. So if I quickly jump into here and draw an object, if I'm here on the selection tool, that's the tool that I'm going to use to move the object around whatever you've drawn around. The next tool is the direct selection tool. Now this tool, as you can see in the example that is showing us here, it adjusts anchor points and segments to reshape the path. So if I bring back that object and I'm going to click shortcut key V, which is the selection tool, to move it into a space. If I click the direct selection tool, which shortcut key is A, I'm able to then show you what this tool does. So as you can see, it's adjusting that anchor point. If I click this path, I can pull it out and pull it in. That just gives you an idea of what that tool does, and it's something that we'll definitely be using as we draw our clothing. The next tool is our pen tool. Shortcut key is P. This is an incredibly important tool because this is the tool that we're going to be using to actually draw our garment. The pen tool, basically you use it in clicks, if that makes sense. As you can see, to draw a line, I'm just stretching it and clicking when I get to the point that I want the line to be. And then if I go all the way around and connect it back to the end of the path, that now becomes one object. So the next tool we're going to look at is within the pen tool. So if you right click or left click, I'm not sure, on my laptop it's just like a double finger click. This is a MacBook, and here is the anchor point tool. This is again a very important tool, and I'm going to show you how it works. So first of all, I'm going to start off by clicking the pen tool, so shortcut key P, and I'm going to draw a dodgy looking box. Now if we left or right click this and open up the further tools, we're going to click the anchor point tool. Again, a very important tool. This will then allow us to bend this line into whatever it is that we want to create. So that is very, very important when we are now creating curves for our drawing. The next tool is the curvature tool. I don't really use this tool, so we're going to skip that. The next tool after that is the shape tool. So you will see all the different shapes that you have available here. You have a rectangle, an ellipse, a polygon, and a star tool. It's pretty self-explanatory. If we click on the ellipse tool and we just click in the middle, we can then decide the dimensions that we want that circle to be. So say if I was to keep it as that, it's going to create this circle which has a diameter of 35 point whatever that said. You can also freehand the rectangle and freehand the ellipse if you want to. Next, we're going to move on to the paintbrush tool. Again, not really a tool that I use, but you can kind of see what it does already. It just draws paths. I don't really use that tool for this, and I don't feel like you're going to need to use that tool for the kind of design that we're creating. Next is the type tool. Pretty self-explanatory. You click it and you're able to type whatever it is that you want to type. Over here on the right hand side, you're then able to change the font. You can also change the size of the font here, along with, say, if you have like a paragraph, how far apart they are. And also here, you can change how far apart the letters are. Then down here, you can change, the alignment of the text. So just basically your basic text tools will be found over here on your right hand side. This tool is your rotate tool. Not really something that I use, because in order to rotate an object, I'll show you how I do it. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to create my ellipse. And basically to rotate without using that tool, I just come to a corner and I just creep out a little bit until you get that little sign pop out. And that is how I rotate my image. So I don't really use that tool at all. This is your eraser tool. You can see what it does. Again, don't really use it. Don't think you will need it for this. Don't use this tool either. This is your gradient tool. Now, I don't particularly use this gradient tool. I use the gradient tool down here. This is your eyedropper tool. So if you want to grab a color from somewhere, you can use that to grab a color. This tool, again, don't really use it. Don't feel like you're going to need it in this tutorial. This is your blend tool. That's an interesting tool. But again, I don't really use it. But I just wanted to show you that there's that tool. And then this is your live paint bucket tool here. We are definitely going to be using this tool. This tool basically allows you to paint segments of a drawing. This box here is your fill. So let's go back and put our ellipse there. So here, as you can see, the fill is black. So if I double click that, I can change the color. And then here I can change the stroke color to whatever color I want that to be. Over here, that's where we would then increase the thickness of that line. So to increase the thickness of the line, we just increase the stroke. So as you can see there, and now we can see that purple come through. Again, over here, we've got another fill tool. So it's basically the same as this side. And then we've got the opacity tool, which basically toggles how much of that image we're able to see, how transparent that image is. Now, if you're missing some tools that I have here, you'll be able to find them down here in your edit toolbar. And as you can see, there's a whole lot of additional tools that we may dip into if we need to. So that's pretty much the user interface that I feel like you're going to need in order to create your design. Over here, if you want to add an artboard, so basically another page, you will go into here where it says edit artboards, and you would add a new artboard. And as you can see now, we've got 2 artboards. Up here, there's of course some other tools that we are going to use eventually, but I will show you those as we go through the tutorial. So now we're ready to get drawing, to get designing. Like I said, you have 2 options. You can import an already sketched drawing. So you will see here that I actually attempted to sketch the jacket, but I'm not the best. So I thought, how can I save time? So I've just imported an image of a jacket, and that is what I'm going to use as my base. So ignore my messy desktop. I'm going to grab the screenshot and I'm going to put it into my Adobe Illustrator page, just like this. And I'm just gonna reduce the size of this. To reduce it so that it doesn't get all warped like this, we have to hold down the shift key. I'm gonna click off on this jacket, and I am gonna reduce the opacity of it so that it's a bit easier to sketch and we can see our lines. And up here, we're gonna click where it says layers. How can I best describe layers? Layers is kind of sort of like, in this case, we've got the drawing, and then I'm gonna put like a trace paper on top, and that's gonna be the second layer. So I'm gonna click here in this box, and it's gonna lock this image in place, so I can't actually click or edit this image. This eye, visible, invisible, visible, invisible. So that's our layer. So to then add an additional layer, we just go down here where it says create new layer, that plus sign down there, and we're just going to create our new layer. And I'm going to name this layer sketch. To rename your layer, you just got to double click there. So double click and rename it. So now I can zoom in to my image, and I'm going to start tracing this jacket. So we're going to come over here to our tools, and we're going to select the pen tool. And you need to remember that the pen tool is here with the anchor point tool, but because the last tool we used was the anchor point tool, it's just going to show the anchor point tool. So we're going to right click and click the pen tool. Now, as you can see, it's got a block on there. You may find that this may happen, you can't draw. That's because you haven't got the correct layer selected, or you haven't got any layer selected. So we're going to click here on our sketch layer, and as you can see, we're going to be able to draw now. So I'm going to start off by clicking here, and then we're going to find our next point here, and we're going to go down here. But as you can see, that's happened. We don't want that to happen. So we're going to go over here into properties, and we're going to change the fill tool to no fill, and we're going to change the stroke tool to black. And now that's a black line, and I'm actually going to reduce the size of that stroke. And now I can go ahead and continue. So I am just creating the lines. The lines don't have to be perfect, because we are going to come back to it, and we are going to curve it and make sure everything is in shape. As you can see, we have reached the center, and it kind of matches up with the first line that we've done at the top there. So we need that purple line to come up to make sure it's a line, and that is where we are going to stop. And then we're going to click P, shortcut key P, so that it kind of like just detaches itself. And I'm now gonna start here, and I'm gonna start creating the details of the jacket. So I'm gonna click here and join that to this path. So basically, the things that I'm adding in are things that are symmetrical to the other side, and then we'll go ahead and add all the other details that are not necessarily symmetrical once we've joined both sides together, if that makes sense. If we click over here in layers, we can click this eye tool and hide that, so we can start to see what it is that we've started to create. I'm going to hop into my pen tool, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click my anchor tool. And now we're going to start making these lines into lines that actually match the jacket. Sorry, my computer is making a lot of noise right now. It's doing a lot of work, clearly. So I'm going to start off with this part, and I'm just going to click in the middle, and I'm going to just drag that down. I'm going to click this line, and I'm just going to drag that so it matches the curve. As you can see, it's not really matching the curve properly, and that's probably because I need another anchor point somewhere on this line. So we're going to hop into our three dots at the bottom, and I'm going to click this one which says add anchor point, and I'm just going to add an anchor point there. And I'm going to go back to my anchor point tool, and now I'll be able to adjust this so it matches a little bit more of the shape that I'm going for. Now I feel like this anchor point is not in the right place, so we're just going to go up here to direct selection so that I can actually move this anchor point up, and then go back to my anchor point tool, and now I can start to curve those shapes into place. So there's two different ways you can curve things. I usually like to curve directly on the line, but you can also use these little points that come out sometimes as well, literally down to your preference. So I'm just curving my lines. So this one I opted to pull out the line so it just like curves nicely. As you can see, this line is not connected properly. I'm going to click A, and I'm going to stretch this line so that it meets that path. So you can just play around until you're happy. Down here, I've noticed that I could actually create this part. So I'm going to go back and click P, and I'm just going to put a point here, click P to release that. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click my anchor point tool. I'm going to curve this down a little bit, and I'm actually going to go ahead and create the additional lines that are in there. So I'm just going to be creating the lines. I'm going to just hide the drawing layer just to check what that looks like. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to curve all those lines. So I'm going to right click on the pen tool, going to click the anchor point tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and start curving those lines. So now I'm just going to take a look at my sketch and just see if there's anything else I could just adjust and add before I duplicate it. There's not really anything else that I feel like would duplicate seamlessly. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. And I'm going to click up here to my selection tool. And I'm actually going to hide my drawing layer just so I can see exactly what I'm doing. And I'm going to highlight all of this. And I'm going to click here where it says properties, and I'm going to group it all, and I'm going to copy it and paste it. I'm going to then come over here where it says object, and I'm going to click here where it says transform, and I'm going to click here where it says reflect, and it's going to reflect on the vertical, and I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to shift this and let it join. So now we've got a fully symmetrical jacket. So I'm going to click back on my layers and I'm going to bring back that drawing. Now I want this outline and this outline to be one part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide that drawing layer again, and I'm going to highlight everything, and I'm going to click on properties, and I'm going to ungroup it. Then I'm going to select this path, and I'm going to select this path, and I'm going to click this tool down here where it says Pathfinder, and I'm going to click this one which says click to unite, and that's going to unite this outline shape, and that is now just one shape. Now I'm going to go back to my layers and I'm going to bring back the drawing. I can now go in and start putting in the details of this jacket. So now we're going to work on these buttons. So we're going to come here into my Eclipse tool, and we're just going to click, and I'm going to guess 20 by 20. We'll see whether it ends up being the right size. It's a little too big, so I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to reduce the size of that circle, and then I'm going to click my selection tool and I'm going to move that circle into place. I'm going to then click into properties, because I know as I've reduced the size of the circle, the stroke is going to have reduced as well. So I'm going to just get that stroke back to the size that I want it to be. And now that my circle is done, I can then copy that. And I'm just going to pop that circle into the place that it needs to be. The last thing that I'm going to add are these lines here, and then I'm going to get rid of the drawing layer, because now the world is my oyster. I'm going to turn this jacket into my jacket, my design. So and that is our jacket pretty much sketched. We can add things to make it look realistic. So if we click key, what I like to do is I'm going to create a line here, and I'm going to do another one on the other side like this. I'm also going to do another line here and another line here like this. I'm going to click the anchor point tool here, and I'm going to curve it a little bit, and I'm going to do the same to all the lines that I've just put in. Then I'm going to select all the lines. I'm going to hold down shift as I do it, and I'm going to click over here where it says properties, and now we're going to play around with the stroke. So I'm actually going to reduce the stroke, and then I'm going to click here in stroke, and down here where it says profile, I'm going to change the profile of that line. Now you can see it kind of looks like creases. So that's our jacket done. My camera actually overheated, so I've had to crack open the window. So if you hear any background noise, it's because my window is open now. So now I'm happy with my jacket. I'm actually going to just go ahead and get rid of that drawing layer. So I'm just going to delete that. And now we're just left with our sketch layer. The first thing that we're actually going to do is we're going to highlight all of this. I'm actually going to reduce the size of it. So hitting that shift key, I'm going to move it over to the side because I then want to create the back piece. So I'm going to copy all of this, bring it over to this side, and all I have to do is just go ahead and delete things that you're not going to find on the back of a Varsity Tee jacket. And that's the back of our Varsity Tee jacket. Okay, cool guys, let's have a little bit of fun. In fact, I'm gonna be extra and I'm actually gonna add a tag in here. So I'm gonna come over here into my rectangle tool and I'm just gonna draw a rectangle. I'm gonna curve points of my rectangle. So I'm gonna click here where it says angle point tool. And I'm just gonna curve this a little bit. And I'm probably gonna reduce the size of it just a little bit. In there, I'm gonna go to my text tool and I'm gonna type my brand name, so Schwarzwa, the little line in the middle. Show you guys how I created my logo. I highlight all of this, properties, Century Gothic, and reduce the size of it. And I'm gonna pop that in there. I'm gonna reduce the size of this further, pop this here, pop that here. I'm gonna make it look like it's stitched. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a line going down like this, and I'm gonna do the same for the other side. And then I'm gonna select both lines, and then in stroke, I'm gonna click here where it says dash line, and I'm going to make the dash line 2. Nope, it needs to be less than there, 0.1. There we go. That's going to look like it's stitched in. Can you see? So now we've got our Varsity Tee jacket. I did want to add a T for Taddy, so I'm going to go into my type tool and I'm going to type T. I'm going to increase the size of the T. I'm going to change the font because I want it to be like a fat looking T like that. That's going to go here. But I'm actually going to now convert this into a vector. So in order to do that, I'm going to select the T and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click here where it says create outlines, release, and that is now a vector like everything else. So I can like adjust the fill color, put a stroke, do what I want with it, that kind of things. So now we're going to have fun with the jacket and the live paint tool. I feel like there's probably going to be a less long-winded way to do this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each individual line. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because there are definitely some lines that probably won't cooperate with the live paint tool. So as I'm doing this, I'm just literally holding down shift, then I go into object up here, live paint, and then make, and that's now ready to live paint. So we're going to go down here into my live paint bucket, and as you can see, you can start to paint like the different sections of the jacket. Did I not select that line? Let me just quickly select this line. If there's any lines that you feel like you haven't selected, you could just go back and select them. We can go ahead and click the live paint bucket over here and you'll be able to see all the different sections that it's gonna live paint. So I'm gonna click over here where it says fill, and I'm gonna select this beautiful blue color and I'm gonna go ahead and paint the sections. So all you have to do in that live bucket tool is just click, really. We're going to live paint this side as well, so we're just going to pretty much do the same thing. So this time I'm actually going to highlight all of the lines and I'm going to click shift and just unhighlight these lines here, and then I'm able to then go into object, live paint, make, and then I can go ahead and click that paint bucket tool and just pretty much do the same. So I'm going to go to fill and I'm going to click that same blue and I'm just going to color this in. Adobe has introduced a new 3D tool, but before we get into that, I actually want to do something cool with the T. I'm going to ungroup everything and I'm going to select the T and I'm going to come down here with my gradient tool here, and as you can see, this gradient bar has come up, and here you could just toggle the gradient to make it look how you want it to look. And I just wanted something like this. I just wanted to do something different with the T. I'm going to click that T again and I'm actually going to get rid of its stroke. I'm going to zoom in over here into my label because it is looking a little sad and we didn't actually select the live paint tool for this. Just going to manually color it in. There is that option to do that as well. I'm going to make it orange like this, just to give a little pop of color. So now I'm going to show you how to do something pretty cool with it. We're going to start off with one of the jackets. We're just going to highlight all of it, and I'm going to click over here where it says effect, and then I'm going to click here where it says 3D material, and I'm going to click this option here where it says inflate. As you can see, it's rendering taking its sweet time, and there we go. We can play around with like the volume, but every single time you adjust something, it's gonna start rendering again. So as you can see, it looks like this. It's got some shadows. I think it looks quite cool. It's 3D. It's completely up to you whether you want to do this or not. You can either keep it like this or have it like this. I don't know, I feel like it does look quite cool. Another thing that I wanted to show you guys as well, what you can do is how you would have like a sort of pattern on the back of your garment. So I'm going to quickly create a pattern. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click my polygon tool, and I'm just going to create like a little shape like this. Get my star tool, and I'm going to create a little star shape like this. I'm actually going to add a gradient to both, and there we have our two little things that we're going to turn into a pattern. I'm going to highlight both of them and I'm going to group them together, and then I'm going to click them, and I'm going to go up here into object and pattern, and then I'm going to click make, and as you can see, it's made a little pattern there. Not quite how I want it. I'm going to stick with grid, but I'm going to adjust the width. So I'm going to click 20, see what that looks like. It's a bit too big, maybe 17. I like the look of that, and I'm going to click over here where it says done and click done. Now to add it to the back of my jacket, what I'll then have to do is select the outline. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste the outline, and I'm going to change the fill to this, and then now I can move this and it can sit on top of this, and there we've got a nice fun pattern on the back. And yeah, that's pretty much our varsity jacket. Please comment down below if you like what that looks like. To then export it, you're just going to click up here where it says file, you're going to click export, and you're going to click export as. I like to export everything as a PNG, and I'm going to export it to my desktop, and I should be able to find it on my desktop, and as you can see, it looks like this. One question that I used to get on my old video, the first video that I made, is what do you then do? So you would then take your design and you will put it into a tech pack. I do have a tech pack template on my website. I'll link it down below so that you can go ahead and grab that, basically move on to the next step that comes after actually designing your garment. Guys, I really hope that this video has been helpful. This is actually an hour worth of filming, so it's going to take a lot of editing, but yeah, I really hope you've learned something, and I will catch you guys in my very next video. Bye. Oh, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.